Welcome to Neil's Narratives. And on today's episode, the Age of Dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. I remember watching Jurassic Park and walking with dinosaurs as a kid. And I remember all of those cool illustrated books on dinosaurs I was given. The endless fascination of giant reptilian monsters roaming an alien Earth always fascinated me to no end. So buckle up for a slightly larger episode today as we tackle the Age of Dinosaurs. For over 150 million years, they were the undisputed rulers of land, sea, and sky. But let's start, as we often do on Neil's Narratives, not at the beginning of their reign, but at the beginning of our discovery. The birth of paleontology. The year is 1824. A British clergyman and geologist named Reverend William Buckland publishes a paper describing the fossilised jaw of a massive reptilian creature found in Oxfordshire. He calls it Megalosaurus, meaning great lizard. It's the first dinosaur to be formally named and described. Soon after, another geologist, Gideon Mantell, identifies the herbivorous iguanodon. And later, his scientific rival, biologist Richard Owen, coins a term that would echo through scientific and popular imagination alike. Dinosauria. Terrible lizards, though we now know they weren't lizards at all. From scattered bones and strange teeth, a new chapter of Earth's history was slowly being uncovered. One of monsters, survivors, and mass extinctions. And that story begins in earnest, in the wake of another apocalypse, with the dawn of the Mesozoic era. The Triassic was Earth's reboot after catastrophe. A hot, arid planet stitched together into one vast supercontinent, Pangaea. The survivors of the Permian extinction were scrappy, experimental, and often weird. It was a time when nature was trying new things, and among these strange creatures, the earliest dinosaurs quietly emerged. Let's meet 5 of these Triassic trailblazers. Eoraptor. Eoraptor lunensis is one of the oldest dinosaurs ever found, discovered in Argentina's Ischigualasco Formation in the early 1990s. It lived around 231 million years ago. This little dinosaur was only about a metre long, with a slender build, hollow bones, and lightly built skull. It walked on 2 legs, had sharp claws, and a mouth full of teeth that hint at a mixed diet. Some were curved and serrated for meat, others more suited to plants. That led many paleontologists to believe it was an omnivore, a generalist in a time of great change. Eoraptor was likely a solitary hunter or forager, darting through the underbrush in search of insects, small reptiles, and perhaps even seeds or roots. It lacked the size and specializations of later dinosaurs, but it had something more important: potential. It represents the blueprint for what would come after. Many scientists now consider Eoraptor close enough to the common ancestor of all theropods, the group that includes T-Rex, Velociraptor, and even birds. This modest creature, forgotten in time for over 230 million years, might be the great-great-great-grandparent of everything from Tyrannosaurus to turkeys. Coeliophysis. Coeliophysis is a name that rings out in the early dinosaur history. Discovered en masse in New Mexico's Ghost Ranch in the 1940s, hundreds of individuals were preserved together in what may have been a mass die-off event, perhaps a flash flood or drought. These animals lived about 210 million years ago and were long, lightweight predators, growing up to 3 meters long with a narrow skull full of needle-like teeth. Citations had a sleek, greyhound-like build. It ran on 2 legs and had large eyes suited to spotting prey. It likely hunted small vertebrates, lizards, insects, maybe even baby dinosaurs. While it was once controversially believed to be cannibalistic due to juvenile bones found in its ribcage, later studies suggest those may have been misinterpreted. It might have simply died on top of other individuals. The Ghost Ranch site shows us that Citations may have lived in groups, possibly even hunting or migrating together. Whether coordinated pack hunters or simply loosely social, their fossil beds suggest a level of population density and survival strategy not seen in the earliest dinosaurs. Plateosaurus. With its long neck, bulky body, and thumb claws, Plateosaurus is one of the first big herbivorous dinosaurs. It lived in what is now Central and Northern Europe about 214 million years ago, and its fossils have been found in Germany, Switzerland, and France. Reaching lengths of up to 10 meters, this early prosauropod was a forerunner to the giant sauropods of the Jurassic. Plateosaurus could walk on all fours or rise up on its hind legs, possibly to browse tall vegetation. Its teeth were leaf-shaped, ideal for stripping ferns and conifers. Interestingly, it had strong forelimbs tipped with large claws, likely not for predation, but maybe for defense or digging. It also had a flexible neck, giving it a wide feeding range without needing to move its entire body. Some fossil sites show a wide range of body sizes and growth rates, suggesting a form of developmental flexibility, a rare trait in reptiles. It might have allowed Plateosaurus to adapt to changing environments or food availability. Whether it lived in herds is debated, but mass grave sites suggest at least some degree of group living or population clustering. Herrerasaurus. Herrerasaurus is another star of the Ichigualasco region in Argentina, a region often called the Valley of the Moon for its eerie, fossil-rich terrain. Living around 231 million years ago, it was one of the earliest true theropods, a swift, two-legged predator that foreshadowed giants like Allosaurus and T-Rex. About 3 to 6 meters long, Herrerasaurus had strong legs, grasping hands with curved claws, and a large, flexible jaw full of sharp, serrated teeth. It was built for speed and precision, more of an ambush predator than a brute force killer. Its hips and ankles were an evolutionary middle ground, not quite like later theropods, but clearly on the way there. Its fossilized remains were found in proximity to other dinosaurs, suggesting it lived alongside creatures such as Eoraptor and Saurosuchus. It was a solitary predator, likely preying on smaller dinosaurs and reptiles, helping shape the evolutionary arm race that would define dinosaurs for millions of years to come. Pterosaurs. While dinosaurs ruled the land, another group of reptiles took to the skies, the pterosaurs. Emerging in the late Triassic, around 215 million years ago, early species like Idiomorphodon and Priondactylus had wings formed by skin stretched along an elongated fourth finger. They were lightweight with hollow bones, sharp teeth and large eyes, perfectly suited for flight and hunting insects or fish. These weren't birds or dinosaurs, but their own branch of the Archaeosaur family tree. Most Triassic pterosaurs were small, agile flyers, gliding above lakes and coastlines. Some fossils show hair-like pycnofibers, suggesting warm-blooded metabolisms and insulation. Pterosaurs were the first vertebrates to master powered flight, over 70 million years before birds appeared. In a world still reeling from extinction, they rose as pioneers of the air, small at first, but in time they would grow to become the largest flying creatures Earth ever knew. The Triassic was full of beginnings, some humble, some ferocious. From featherless proto-hunters to long-necked herbivores and agile flyers, it was a world testing the rules of survival. But when the Triassic ended in another mass extinction, the survivors didn't just rebuild, they exploded into possibility. The Jurassic period, 201 to 145 million years ago. The Triassic was a warm-up. The Jurassic, that was the headline act. Pangaea was breaking apart, rifting into continents we'd later name. New oceans flooded inland. Volcanoes pumped CO2 into the atmosphere, keeping things balmy and lush. Conifer forests stretched for miles. Giant ferns shaded the ground. And above it all, the dinosaurs flourished. Let's meet the Jurassic giants, and the creatures that dared to scurry beneath their feet. Allosaurus. If the Jurassic had a king, it wasn't T-Rex, it was Allosaurus. Discovered in the late 1800s in the Morrison Formation of America's West, this predator was the dominant carnivore of its time. It grew up to 9 meters long, walked on 2 powerful legs, and had 3-fingered hands with long, hooked claws. Its massive skull was full of serrated teeth, like steak knives made of bone. Allosaurus wasn't built like a tank. It was more of a deadly sprinter. Its jaws may have not matched T-Rex in crushing power, but some paleontologists believed it used its neck muscles to hack downwards like a hatchet, opening deep wounds in prey. There's even evidence of healed bite marks on Stegosaurus bones that match an Allosaurus-shaped mouth. A messy battle, it seems, and not always a successful one. Whether it hunted in packs or alone is still debated. Some fossil sites contain multiple individuals, which could imply social hunting, or it could just be the result of scavengers gathering at a carcass. Either way, Allosaurus was fast, fearsome and flexible, a true Jurassic apex predator, and one of my personal favourites. Stegosaurus. With a row of towering plates down its back, and a tail tipped with 4 brutal spikes, Stegosaurus is one of the most recognisable dinosaurs ever discovered. Its fossils, also found in the Morrison Formation, date to around 150 million years ago. Stegosaurus could grow up to 9 meters long and weighed several tons, but had a tiny brain, roughly the size of a dog's. Its plates were once thought to be purely for defense, but they likely played multiple roles, regulating heat, making the animal look larger to predators, or even for display, sort of like a prehistoric billboard. Its tail, however, was no mystery. Called a phagomizer. Yes, that's a real term, coined in a cartoon and adopted by scientists. These spikes could shatter bones. Fossils of Allosaurus show signs of phagomizer wounds. Stegosaurus probably moved in small groups, slowly ambling through conifer forests and low-lying ferns. It used its beak to crop vegetation and swallow gastroliths. They are small stones that the animal would swallow to help grind its food. It may have not been fast or bright, but with its armour and its tail, it didn't really need to be. Diplodocus. When people think long dinosaur, they often picture Diplodocus, Discovered in the late 19th century and stretching up to 25 metres long, this sauropod was one of the longest animals to ever live. It had a slender, whip-like tail, a long neck, and a surprisingly lightweight body compared to its size. A masterpiece of prehistoric engineering. Diplodocus lived in herds, likely migrating in search of food. Its peg-like teeth were all clustered at the front of its mouth, perfect for stripping leaves from branches, but not for chewing. Like other sauropods, it probably relied on massive gut fermentation to break down plant matter over time, assisted by a steady intake of gastroliths. Its tail is one of its most intriguing features. Some paleontologists suggest it could crack like a whip, potentially used for defense, communication, or display. Fossils of juvenile Diplodocus suggest they grew quickly, perhaps as a survival tactic in a world full of hungry predators. Camarasaurus. Not every Jurassic sauropod was a record breaker. Camarasaurus was smaller than Diplodocus, around 15 to 20 metres long, but far more robust. With a boxy skull and spoon-shaped teeth, it was built for chomping tougher vegetation than its long-necked cousins. Its fossils are some of the most common in North America, indicating it was one of the most successful herbivores of its time. Unlike Diplodocus, Camarasaurus had strong, short-necked vertebrae and a barrel-shaped body. This suggests it browsed at mid-level heights rather than reaching the treetops. It may have coexisted peacefully with other sauropods by occupying a slightly different ecological niche. Fossil trackways suggest herding behaviour, possibly involving tight-knit family groups. This would have provided protection for juveniles and may have helped coordinate migration across the sprawling floodplains of the Morrison ecosystem. Archaeopteryx. In 1861, just 2 years after Darwin's On the Origin of Species, a feathered fossil was pulled from the limestone of Solnhofen, Germany. With teeth, claws, and a long bony tail, but also clear feather impressions. It was the first real fossil link between dinosaurs and birds. Archaeopteryx was small, about the size of a magpie, and it could likely glide or flap for a short distance. Its feathers weren't just for flight, they were asymmetrical, suggesting adaptation for aerial control, but may have also provided insulation or display. It had claws on its wings and teeth in its beak, traits birds would later lose. Whether Archaeopteryx is a direct ancestor of modern birds or just a close cousin is still debated. But it's a clear sign that by the late Jurassic, theropod dinosaurs had already begun branching into the skies. The line between dinosaur and bird was already blurring. While dinosaurs ruled the surface world, mammals were biding their time in the shadows. One of the most important early mammals was Morganocodon, a tiny mouse-sized creature with differentiated teeth, incisors, canines, molars, a key hallmark of mammals. It likely fed on insects and lived in burrows, emerging at night to avoid predators. Another was Docodon, which shows early adaptation for chewing and jaw complexity. These Jurassic mammals had fur, were warm-blooded, and may have had parental care behaviours. In a world of giants, they stayed small and adaptable, the evolutionary equivalent of staying under the radar. While dinosaurs were branching out into giants and gliders, mammals were refining the tools of complexity. Tiny brains maybe, but big evolutionary futures. But the Jurassic couldn't last forever. By 145 million years ago, Earth was shifting again. Continents further apart, sea levels rising, flowers booming, and on the other side of it all, a final glorious act for the dinosaurs. Cretaceous period, 145 to 66 million years ago. Cretaceous period was the final and flashiest act of the dinosaurs' reign. By now, the continents were drifting into more familiar shapes. Sea levels were high. Vast inland oceans cut across what's now North America. Flowering plants, angiosperms, appeared and spread, setting off a co-evolutionary explosion with insects. Dinosaurs adapted in every direction. Some bulked up, others got faster. Some learned to glide or swim. And then, they vanished. But before that, let's meet some of the stars of their final era. Tyrannosaurus rex. T-Rex, without a doubt, the most famous of the dinosaurs. Discovered in 1902 by Barnum Brown in the Hell Creek Formation of Montana, Tyrannosaurus rex lived around 68 to 66 million years ago, right at the tail end of the Cretaceous. It stood nearly 4 meters tall at the hips, measured 12 meters from snout to tail, and weighed an estimated 9 tons. Its massive head housed banana-sized teeth and an incredible bite force, among the strongest of any terrestrial animal, capable of crushing bone. But T-Rex wasn't just a lumbering brute. Its forward-facing eyes gave it stereoscopic vision, useful for hunting. Its brain, while not huge, was relatively sophisticated for a dinosaur, particularly in the olfactory region. It could probably smell better than a bloodhound. Debate continues over whether it was a pure predator or a scavenger, but modern evidence leans towards a flexible opportunist. If it could chase it down, it would. If it was already dead, even better. Despite its reputation, T-Rex wasn't invincible. Juveniles were faster and more agile, filling different ecological niches. Adults may have lived solitary lives or formed loose territories. But one thing's for sure, when it walked, the ground probably shook. Triceratops. At a glance, Triceratops looks like the dinosaur equivalent of a rhino crossed with a medieval battering ram. It lived in the same region and time period as T-Rex, and may have even squared off against it. Its fossils, found across North America, are among the most common from the late Cretaceous. Triceratops grew up to 9 meters long and weighed around 6 to 12 tons. Its most iconic features were the large frill of bones at the back of its skull and free facial horns, 2 above the eyes and 1 on the nose. These features likely had multiple purposes: defense, intimidation, species recognition, and possibly sexual display. Its beak was sharp, its teeth arranged in tightly packed dental batteries, perfect for grinding tough vegetation. Though traditionally depicted as solitary, more recent fossil sites suggest it may have lived in herds, especially juveniles. Injuries on its horns and healed damage on T-Rex skulls point to possible battles between these titans. Velociraptor. Forget the man-sized monsters from Jurassic Park. The real Velociraptor, mongoliensis, was about the size of a turkey, with feathers. Discovered in 1923, during a Mongolian expedition in the Gobi Desert, Velociraptor lived around 75 to 71 million years ago. It was about 2 meters long, stood less than a meter tall, and weighed just about 15 to 20 kilograms. But don't let its size fool you. It was fast, agile, and smart. It had a curved, sickle-shaped claw on each foot, likely used to pin down small prey or deliver fatal slashes. Its brain-to-body ratio was high, suggesting above-average intelligence for a dinosaur. It had stereoscopic vision, a strong sense of smell, and most dramatically, feathers. Fossil impressions confirm a bird-like plumage with quill knobs on the forearms. It may have hunted alone or in small packs, preying on lizards, mammals, and juvenile dinosaurs. One spectacular fossil, known as the fighting dinosaurs, shows a velociraptor locked in combat with a protoceratops. Claws sunk in, both animals buried mid-battle by a collapsing sand dune. A moment of Cretaceous drama frozen forever. Spinosaurus. If T-Rex ruled the land, Spinosaurus aegypticus owned the rivers. First discovered in Egypt in 1912 by German paleontologist Ernst Stromer. The original fossils were tragically destroyed during World War II bombings, but since then, new finds in North Africa have helped reconstruct this bizarre predator. Living around 100 to 93 million years ago, Spinosaurus was possibly the largest theropod ever, reaching 15 meters or more in length. Its crocodile-like skull was long and narrow, with conical teeth, perfect for gripping fish. It had a tall sail on its back, possibly used for thermoregulation or display, and unusually short hind limbs, leading many paleontologists to believe it spent much of its time in the water. Recent fossil evidence, including paddle-like feet and dense bones, supports the idea of a semi-aquatic lifestyle, the first confirmed in a non-avian dinosaur. Spinosaurus likely hunted in rivers and deltas, catching fish and maybe even scavenging larger carcasses. It's a perfect example of the Cretaceous growing specialization, an apex predator not of the forest but of the floodplain. Ankylosaurus. Imagine a tank with a tail. Now give it a bad attitude. That's Ankylosaurus. This heavily armoured herbivore lived at the end of the Cretaceous in North America. It reached 6 to 8 meters in length, and it was covered head to tail in thick, fused bone plates called osteoderms. Even its eyelids had armour. But the real showpiece was its tail, a massive bony club capable of shattering the legs of predators, even T-Rex. Ankylosaurus had a wide, low-slung body and strong limbs. It wasn't fast, but it didn't need to be. It was basically a living tank. Its beaked mouth and leaf-shaped teeth were ideal for chewing low-lying plants, cycads and ferns. It likely lived a solitary life or moved in loose herds, browsing quietly through the underbrush. The presence of scars and fractures on its tail club suggests it actively used it, not just for defense, but possibly for fighting rivals. In a world of toothy predators, Ankylosaurus didn't just survive, it dared predators to try. By the Cretaceous, mammals had grown bolder, no longer just shrew-like insectivores. Some were evolving into larger, more complex forms. Eomaya is one of the earliest known placental mammals, the group that includes most modern mammals, including humans. It lived about 125 million years ago in what's now China. Fossils show it had fur, a flexible body and a long tail, likely a nimble tree climber that gave live birth. Then there's Rapenomamus, a meat-eater from China that grew up to a metre long, and was found with baby dinosaurs in its stomach. That's right, by the late Cretaceous, mammals weren't just surviving, they were fighting back. These mammals were setting the stage for the next age, one that they'd inherit. And then, 66 million years ago, it ended. A 10-kilometre wide asteroid struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula. The impact released more energy than all of the world's nukes combined. Wildfires, tsunamis, acid rain, global darkness. Plants died, then herbivores, then predators. The non-avian dinosaurs went extinct, but not all was lost. Some small feathered theropods, the ancestors of birds, survived, and so did those clever little mammals, waiting patiently in the wings for something incredible to happen. Thanks so much, guys. It's been a bit of a longer episode today. I hope you enjoyed it. My gosh, I was fumbling the words many times today. It took me very long to record, so hope you appreciate it. Love you lots. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.